I don't know if it's going to show. Wait. Yeah, no, we
We're
are
live?
live. I'm wondering.
Let's do it
It says we're
live!
live. Hold on. I want to see my if it's showing up on where it would show up. I'm just curious. I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to see if I connected it right. Oh, we are. But it's showing. Welcome to
On
our
what?
live. It's showing up like that. On
Are
let
we
me.
live on YouTube?
Yeah, we are. Oh my God! Look.
Kayla, we're live on YouTube? Oh my god, for real.
Hold on. We are. Okay. It worked. Let me see if we're live on the other one.
Sweet.
Hold on. One more. All right. So I guess we should start.
Oh yeah, I see us on YouTube.
There he is. Okay. So Simply Vibin is now under a new name and a new podcast. And Phoebe and I are back, and we cannot wait to get started. I am live streaming on my Love You Miss You Bye YouTube channel because I couldn't set up two, and I knew that I could probably do it on this one. So I'm Christy Chanel, as you know, on my podcast, and I'm here with Phoebe. She's the clown, the scary clown, and Sam, who's
I'm
our
just a
guest
regular
today.
clown.
Yeah, and Sam today. And we are going to do a little Halloween special. This isn't what we normally look like, so I figured we would do something in celebration for tomorrow. This will then be streamed on the Simply Vibin podcast tomorrow, so you can check it out there if you can't catch the live. Okay, so today we're going to talk about true crime, which is something that I just kind of started getting into. And on Phoebe and my show, we're going to mostly talk about hot topics. I think next week we're going to get into Diddy and that whole drama and the whole
Looking forward to
web
that.
of deception. Yeah, I'm getting into it right now and listening to a lot of stuff. But today is all about true crime. So, Sam, welcome.
Hi.
I brought in Sam because I don't know if anybody can tell a story like she can. She has been on our show before. We have loved her, and she is just so good at what she does. Besides being a huge dog lover and advocate, she is a true crime lover. So, what story are you going to tell everybody today?
I have brought a classic. It is Mr. Ed Gein, the inspo for all of our favorite horror movies from, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think, and I'm going to say this, I think he gets a bad rap because, yes, he did some of the more. I know. He did some of the more heinous things in the kind of OG big hitter true crime world. But he's kind of misunderstood. He comes from a really horrible background and had a really hard life and was mentally ill. And back then, it was kind of harder to navigate that. So yeah, he kind of was bred into this perfect killer that it kind of came from unfortunate circumstances. And if he'd kind of had some different circumstances, I don't think a lot of this could have turned out this way.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I have a lot of pages of notes, but yeah, I've got some early stuff. We've got just some facts and stuff, but I've got a whole timeline we can go through.
Okay. Yeah. Well, tell us what exactly he did, and then take us back to like his childhood.
So Ed Gein is known as the serial killer that turned people into furniture after he murdered them.
Oh,
Yeah, he's the one. I have an entire list. We'll get to it a little bit later, but I
yeah.
have a whole list of all of his everything that was found in his house after he was captured. So it's like a receipt of everything he created. Um, and it's I don't recommend going and looking up the pictures, but if you're into that kind of thing, they are fascinating. And there's probably everybody's like, oh, I know Ed Gein. Everybody knows that story. There's plenty of people who don't, and It's very sick. It's very disturbing, but it's also super super interesting.
I think I've seen these pictures.
Probably.
Somewhere down the line. I think I have. His house was messy and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a real hoarder situation. But I'm sure what
Mm-hmm.
most people have seen is like the gloves, the human
Mm-hmm.
skin gloves that he made. Yeah, just to kind of get into a little bit of it, there was the human skin gloves. There was a waste basket made of human skin, and my personal favorite is the human nipple belt that he made
Oh, I
out
hadn't
of
heard that.
out of human nipples. He had a
What?
mammary vest too that he would put on. And
Oh
again,
my God.
yeah, it's a it's
I felt I'm like,
some, I, it's some intense shit. And again, though, you kind of when you kind of go through his childhood and everything, even later adulthood, because he was kind of home with mom and dad until mom and dad both died very short together. Um, but yeah, you kind of see where a lot of this comes from as you kind of tour through that. So
mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
really interesting.
Okay, so as I learn more about this live thing, I'll probably be able to figure out a way to show pictures because I know
Mm-hmm.
that some lives can do that. Phoebe has disappeared.
Hi, Phoebe.
It's necessary. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can. So go ahead and continue though. Okay, so they found all of these things in his home.
Mm-hmm. They
Okay.
did. It was he actually only okay. He killed two people, but it is and so he's got one of the lower body counts. Really what makes his crime so heinous is everything that he created with it. But he only killed two people and it was kind of some just people in his close vicinity. Really all of these people were in his very close vicinity. It was a very small town in Wisconsin called Plainsfield.
Mm-hmm.
So he possibly killed three people though, because it's very very likely that he killed his own brother. You back, Phoebe?
You look better
Yeah.
too. Yeah, it's more clear.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Keep going. I know, because I had never heard the story actually, Sam. I know you said most
Really?
people had. I
I haven't
hadn't.
heard the
Mm-mm.
story. I just
Yeah.
feel like I've seen pictures of a chair or something.
It's like if you go onto like top 10 craziest freaking pictures, like he ends up in a lot of those, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure. But yeah, it's just an interesting story, so I'm just gonna go into it. He was born in August of 1906 to Augusta and George Gein. His parents were kind of not really his dad. His dad was kind of just a piece of shit that really just drank all the time, like didn't really have much else to do with his children, his wife, anything. So we don't really have to cover him too much. He died later from drinking himself to death, and that's about the summation of his story. The real fascinating person in his life was his mother. She was super duper like Christian, like violently freaking Christian, like would preach at anybody that she freaking came across, and she hated other women. That was her
Oh.
whole thing to both of her sons, because there was his brother Henry Gein as well. But yeah, it was that if any woman that you come across is trying to get you to commit sin, her favorite thing to quote at them was Proverbs 5:3. For the lips of a strange woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. She would just throw Bible verses at them all the freaking time.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted a girl because she wanted somebody to kind of impress these views upon and to kind of create, it seemed to be another like little her. So she had Henry first. He was born in January 1902, and then 4 years later she had Ed in 1906. So she wanted a girl so bad. So after having Ed and being disappointed with another son, she would sometimes even dress Ed up as like a little girl. And
Oh.
yeah, and he loved her, but at the same time, it came to be found out later that he was mentally ill and schizophrenic. So he had this deep-seated love for her because it's kind of all he ever knew was her and his dad. They moved out to this like farmland in this great sandy shitty desert of in Wisconsin, and they would have moved to the house where he would eventually kind of do all of his killings. But yeah, she was just so horrible to him, but was just like, the only person that's ever going to love you is me. The only woman you're ever going to be safe with is me. So yeah, if she wasn't ever, if he was not by her side, she always told him, eventually every woman is going to, put you into sin's way at some point. She, so to keep her boys away from women, she encouraged the boys, and it's not known for sure if she taught them how, but she really encouraged them to masturbate a lot. So to kind of
What?
yeah, I know.
Phoebe's face.
I know. It's going to be a lot of that. This was a lesser sin to her than laying with a woman. So to her, that was just kind of a way to get those feelings out. She would sit them both down every night and read the Bible.
Stop it.
I know. Like her sitting in the rocking chair, the boys sitting on the ground. And I say boys, but they were like 34, 38 years old. They're in like their mid-30s and yeah, still living at home. So they go through this whole horrible childhood, and the dad finally drinks himself to death. Thank God. Bye. Useless. Go on. So Ed, he kind of had to take over for his dad. So he took on a lot of odd jobs throughout the community, and he was actually at the time pretty well liked. He was kind of just the neighborhood odd guy, just no kids, no wife, but they would have people babysit. He babysat and looked after a lot of the kids in the community. Never did anything creepy. He was just kind of, I think, maybe more child-minded, and he seemed to connect better with these kids. And they all liked him. They liked him very well.
I'm hearing a blowback.
Oh.
Whose is it?
Is that me?
I'm hearing, like, after you talk, I hear an echo somewhere. Does everybody have in headphones?
Yeah, I've got headphones.
I have headphones.
Okay, then I guess we're good. Go ahead.
Um,
Sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
stopped your flow, but I want to make sure we can do this on the podcast streaming apps too. So go ahead.
No, absolutely. So I mentioned his brother. So they were, just brothers. They got along pretty well. The only thing that they kind of disagreed on was the mom, Augusta herself. And Henry felt that Ed kind of relied on her a little bit too much. And kind of after the dad died, he kind of got this realization of like, this is all pretty fucked up. I need to get away from this. And so he, was kind of trying to do his own thing. And that's the one thing that they kind of debated on. So he was a firefighter. Or, he helped with runaway fires. That he was not a firefighter, but he assisted with helping fight fires. So 3 years after his dad passed, they're helping fight this fire. And so Henry Gein goes missing. And so Ed comes back after, all of the turmoil from the fire, and everybody's like, hey, where's your brother Henry? Because you were both out there, fighting fire. And Ed's like, oh, well, he got burnt up in the fire. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, we need to go try to find his body to get him to come back. So Ed was able to take them directly to where his body was. Like, just led them straight to it. Not burned, not a scratch on him. So he did not die. Maybe from smoke inhalation, but he did not get burned up. But it's very plausible that Ed killed him because of his distaste for Augusta. So now he's down a brother, he's down a dad, he's stuck just with this woman. So not too long after Henry died, Augusta had a stroke. So now she, is down and out. She survives the first stroke, but not too long after that, there was a incident where they were going to buy some straw from a farmer. And so when they get to this farmer's house, he's having an argument with his mistress in the driveway. And so this gets Augusta so worked up, and she's just throwing hateful Christian shit at him, and just has another stroke, and it kills her.
What the hell?
Yeah, she ranted and raved about it for a week, and then just dropped dead because she
Wow.
would not let it go. So she just stressed herself out, and now.
Don't ever die over a man like that.
I mean, honestly,
Seriously?
and that's the thing, is it wasn't even her man. It was somebody else's man that was cheating with a wife. They had nothing to do with her.
Nothing to do with her.
No, not
That
at
is
all.
insane.
Yeah, she's just, and this is all before we even get to him having killed anybody.
Is
This
that
is-
empathic though? Is that, how you empaths can feel a lot of emotion and energy, or I mean, I can't
I-
imagine ever feeling that much.
I think she was just a self-righteous bitch.
Okay,
You know
that
what I
works.
mean?
That
Like,
works.
I think she was just so dead set in what she believed, and that's fine to believe that. That's cool, but yeah, it killed her eventually.
Hmm.
But Ed was just freaking distraught about it. It
Mhm.
was just, the whole funeral, and he couldn't even talk about her afterward without kind of, just crying. He was a very sensitive guy, cried a lot. Everybody kind of called him a sissy. He wasn't into hunting or anything. That, up in Wisconsin, that's what they be doing. So yeah, he was well liked by the community, but bullied a little bit for kind of being a big wuss and being
Yeah.
a big baby. He did have a girlfriend for a little bit, very, very short period of time, Miss Adeline Watkins. She was described by the community as very plain, so, not too bad, but issue with her was that she hated her own mother. So very quickly, Ed cut it off with her, and then just kind of just didn't ever get with women again. Well, he not pursued them. He fawned over a couple, but we'll see where that goes.
So wait,
Um,
so the one with his ex-girlfriend,
Mhm.
he did it say why they broke up, or was he just
Because she hated her mom.
okay? He couldn't handle that.
So
Okay,
she hated
got
her
it.
mother, and he just could not wrap his mind around that. That was just
Too
he
much.
couldn't have that. So he broke up with her, and she
That
got
makes
off.
sense.
Yep, she got off pretty easy. And it, the
Good luck. I mean, I'm so glad she didn't like her mother in this situation.
no joke. And he very much, it was kind of found out later, he kind of wanted to be a woman. And it's debated on if that's how he was raised. It's debated on if that was just kind of how he felt. I mean, you can see kind of some nature versus nurture in there, but he very much wanted to be a woman. That's where a lot of his work and why most of his not canvases, but most of the women that he collected for his purposes were women, because he was kind of much like a Buffalo Bill, kind of building his own lady skin suit. So he's already very mentally ill, schizophrenia, severely abused, and his desire to be a woman kind of all manifested itself into him wanting to create this woman's suit.
It's like
he-
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, very much. That's what it's exactly
And he
what that
he was very
inspired from.
feminine, and
Yeah,
kinda-
and he in the movie though, he's actually, according to Hannibal Lecter, he's not a true transvestite. Buffalo
really?
Bill, yeah, because that's like one of the key points to that movie is like he thinks he is, but he's actually not, because and I don't remember exactly what the reasoning was. I should have seen that movie a million times, but that's one of the lines from Hannibal in the movie.
Do you think
Um,
that they based the character on?
Yeah, Buffalo Bill. Buffalo Bill, the woman's skin suit is based from that. Psycho, the kind of relationship in that movie that he has with his mom, that's based on Ed Gein. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Ed Gein did a lot of masks. He created a lot of masks. Some were for wearing, some were for displaying, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre took that. So kind of the modern cinema, like of horror, who knows where it would be without Mr. Ed
Wow.
Gein. He inspired quite a lot of stuff. There's even kind of some speculation of like Friday the 13th, Jason, like if that's also because kind of his thing with his mom.
True.
He actually was not a cannibal. It is kind of speculated that he was a cannibal, but that's actually not true according to him, and they were not able to ever find any evidence of it. But that was kind of just, it came to be because when they went and searched his house after his second kill, that he very quickly got busted for. They found a heart in a bag near his stove, so it was just kind of like, oh, he's going to eat it. And he was like, no, and he admitted to most of it, and it just kind of would just tell, once he got caught, he's like, yeah, I'll tell you everything. And he laid out pretty much everything, but he was staunch on that he did not eat any of the people. So.
I mean, what does he got to lie about?
Yeah, I mean, at that point,
At that point-
I don't really know if the mental capacity kind of to lie about that, because
Yeah.
he really didn't have kind of the concept truly. Like he was found clinically insane, and they literally were like, no, he cannot differentiate right and wrong. He understands that what he did was wrong, but he does not see it as it having been wrong, which is kind of like, I'm like, be born just a little bit later, and you might have been sick, but you might not have turned to killing people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
dressing women like deer in your basement, and just a lot of stuff. So we're gonna actually get into some of the creepy stuff.
Okay.
So his first kill was Miss Mary Hogan. She was the owner of a local bar, super drunk, super foul mouthed, super the opposite of his mom, which kind of is what is presumed is what kind of drew him to her. It's that, he was torn between his love for his mom and this sinful woman who, in appearance, very buxom, very big. Because that was another thing about Augusta. She was a big old refrigerator gal. And, I think that's what he kept looking for in these women. Again, kind of another inspiration in Buffalo Bill. So on December 8th of 1954, he took a .32 caliber bullet to her head while she was closing shop and took her out. So
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, just kind of went into the shop one day. It was just like, yep. And there was some things too that he supposedly was like hearing his mom in his head.
Okay.
When he would walk through the forest, he would see like faces in the leaves, and they're like, ha ha ha, like laughing at him. So there's a little bit of hallucination going on. So that was kind of one of the things that supposes like his mom was the one like kind of helping him pick his victims, as it were, because I'm going to get into the grave robbing stuff here in a second, and there was a lot of times where he would bail out of it because he would like kind of come out of his daze and like come out of the trance kind of that he would be in, and he was just like, oh my god, what am I doing? And it's like those little moments of clarity, and he would go back and not rob the grave. But there was quite a few graves robbed because just these two women did not make all of the things
clothes,
that he wound up
stuff.
making.
Yeah.
So much stuff. So around the same time that he shot her, there was 4 other people unrelated that went missing in the area. And so they were just like, oh, she just went missing, and they never figured it out. Apparently the police in this area sucked because they were just like, well, 4 people went missing. Oh, well. And
What year are we in?
We are in 1954.
Okay.
Yeah. So he would even make jokes about her being gone. So when people would ask him, like, oh, if you'd taken her home and had you cook you a meal, maybe she wouldn't have gone missing. And he would make jokes like, she's in my kitchen now making something for me. Yeah, just kind of those little dark jokes.
Oh,
And
no.
her head was found in a paper bag in his kitchen 3 years later. That was one of the artifacts that they found whenever they went in.
Paper? Not even plastic.
No, and the second girl, he put her head in a burlap sack, so that was a little bit better. But yeah, this one was just paper bag. Just
Phoebe's face.
I'm thinking of the smell. I just keep thinking of the
I know,
smell.
that's what I'm saying. It
'Cause
wasn't
none
even
of this would
plastic.
contain it. A
Leakage.
paper bag?
yeah.
Yeah.
He,
I'm just like, it's soaked and
What
there was a time after after all of his family had died, there was a young couple in town, and he was like, they kind of like, okay, this may have been another moment of clarity for him, that he just needed to get away from this hell house. And so he's like, oh yeah, I'll trade houses with you. My house is bigger. I can move into y'all's smaller house. And so they came out to view the property because it's just neighborly Ed. It's not a big deal. So they go in this house, and everybody who went into the house was like, there's a fucked up smell in this house because there's no AC, there's no electricity, there's nothing. So it's just this cabin full of dead bodies. And maybe not at that point, because I don't know if during when he was like touring this house with them, if he had gotten into the grave robbing yet, which even worse. But yeah, that he tried to trade houses with them, and he's like, oh, I'll get around to cleaning it eventually. But obviously they were like, no thanks. We don't want to have your house. It smells like shit.
Hell no.
No. So in between those two, he starts getting into grave robbing because he only killed 2 people, possibly 3, but his brother did not get used in any of his items. He would keep an eye out on the obituaries for women in the town and to like fit the specifications of whatever he was working on. And the day after the funeral, he would go dig up the grave and steal the corpse. So over about 5 years, he robbed as many as 9 graves. And there could be more. There absolutely could be more, but that is how many they were able to kind of confirm. They were all newly dead, middle-aged women, a few of which he knew personally. So when robbing the graves, he would kind of describe it as being in a daze. Sometimes he would even snap out of it, rebury the coffin, go home. Other times he would only take what he needed for his projects and then return the women to their graves because he felt that that was more respectful. So he didn't want to deprive them of being buried, so he just took what he needed and put it back because that was a nice thing to do.
Very
so you
sweet
can,
of him.
Yeah, you can see the mindset is
Twisted.
it's twisted, but it's there. You know, he's trying. So on some nights during the full moon, one of the things he created was a mammary vest, and it's something.
Mammary?
Yep, like
Boobies.
yep. And so he would put it on, and he had also made a human skin drum, and he had a human jawbone that he would use as a drumstick, and he would go dance in the moonlight on his property and bang his drum. This is per him, but they found
That's
the drum.
almost like Matthew McConaughey when he did that thing and he was naked and anyway,
I'm
go ahead.
telling you,
There's something
so
to this moonlight thing and playing
it's
an
all
instrument.
there. It is. So yeah, he did quite a bit of grave robbing. And once I get into the list of everything, you'll kind of see the scope of everything that he took and kind of created with it. His second kill was, and the one that got him caught, was Bernice Worden. So we've gone into 1957. So really not too much longer after. It's about 3 years later. Same kind of thing. Big, full-figured woman with a very quick wit, sharp tongue. So immediately fosters a super intense attraction to her.
Sorry to interject.
No, sure.
So he's attracted to the big women because it makes more skin, probably.
It's that,
Maybe?
and they remind him of his mom because she was the
Okay.
exact same way. And so he had this deep-seated kind of resentment for her, but also this super deep-seated obsession and love with her, just because of the kind of their odd relationship that they had, where she was like, I'm the only woman that's ever going to genuinely love you. Every other woman is going to abuse you, use you. So
that's
kind
why
of
he's
same
killing
thing.
them.
Yep. And same thing, she stole her husband from another woman, and that woman committed suicide. The woman that Bernice stole the husband from. And so kind of paired with his attraction to her, as well as this super big sin that she committed, that is how she became his next target. So November 16th, at least back then, was the beginning of deer season in Wisconsin. So he'd kind of done some reconnaissance and had been talking to her son, who also worked with her, and was like, oh, big deer season coming up. Are you going to go out on the 16th? And he's like, oh yeah, her son was like, oh yeah, Frank Worden, I'm going to go out. I've got to go, bag some deer. And he's like, so is your mom just going to be here? And he's like, oh yeah, somebody's got to run the store, so she's going to be here. So on November 16th, he drives to the hardware store early in the morning, confirms the son's not going to be there, he leaves, and that she's going to be there by herself. He walks in, buys some antifreeze, and leaves. So it's kind of debated on if he had a change of heart, if he just forgot. So he comes back a few minutes later and is like, hey, I want to look at some rifles. I'm thinking about trading mine in. So she hands him this rifle from the gun case, and she just happens to turn around and look out this window, and she's looking at a car. And so as soon as she turns around, he has a .22 bullet in his pocket, loads it, shoots her in the back of the head. So she's dead. So, at least they're going out quick. He's not torturing them or anything.
Yeah.
So he takes her. So Bernice's son comes back, finds the cash register missing and his mother missing, with a huge pool of blood at the store. So it kind of looks like he tried to make this look like a robbery gone wrong. But he left his antifreeze receipt. And so he knew the son was like, oh, I remember Ed was in here asking about antifreeze not that long ago. So that's immediately, he goes to the cops and is like, hey, I'm 90% sure I know who did this. But everybody in the town's like, oh, well, that's just Ed. So they go out to his property and they go to talk to him. So after they find this receipt, they drive out to Ed's property and find him about to leave the property with his young friend, Bobby Hill, of all names. And they were about to go into town to see what was going on, see what all the fuss was about. And so immediately he was suspect number one and he was apprehended immediately. So as there's a group of police arresting Ed, there's a second group that go into the home. So they go to the front door, it's locked, so they turn around and they're like, all right, so they go down to the cellar. That's unlocked. So like, all right, we can go in through here. So they go down into the cellar and it's super dark. So they got their flashlights, but they're, kind of maneuvering through. One of the cops feels something brush against his shoulder. So he flashes his light around. And have either of y'all ever seen a deer be dressed, like processed after hunting?
Yes.
Yeah, he had done that to her. So basically she's hanging upside down, cut stem to stern, everything pulled out. And he's just processing her just like you would any butcher animal, hunted animal.
I couldn't handle it when I saw it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even a human, but it's awful.
And that was how he did both of his. So both Mary and Bernice both got it that way, to where they were processed. And he fully kept them. So I don't really know what the difference was between them and the grave robbed women. Why they got to have like a little bit of respect. And I'll return some of their body parts, but man, a lot of what he has is from the two main girls. So they were searching through his home filled with all of his creations. The police also found a boarded up room. And you would think in this house of horrors, where just in the foyer he's got skulls and hearts and bones, so there's just perfectly sealed up room. They're like, what's going to be in here? And it was this perfectly pristine, clean room, and it was his mother's room, and he had kept it spotless and locked and barricaded for all of those years. Yeah, so it was like the one place in the house that was not a hoarder's situation. So they, searching through the basement too, they also find Bernice's severed head in what they described as a steaming burlap sack. So
wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's such
steaming.
A visceral way to describe it. It's just, it's crazy. So after they get him and they're questioning him, and he doesn't really want to tell them anything, and they're like, hey, we've been through your house, we need to talk to you about some of this stuff. So he made one request, and it was for a slice of pie with some cheese on it. So apple pie, cheese slice. And after he got his pie, he started telling them everything, very matter-of-factly. Not like he was proud of it. It was just like, oh yeah, this is what I did. I took her home. I strung her up. Yep, I robbed those graves. At first, the cops did not believe him because he was kind of a smaller guy, but farm life, size don't really matter. So they really didn't believe him capable of being able to rob all these graves. So there was actually an exhumation order that was made so that all of these graves, they could check them for all of these women that had been grave robbed. And it was like the first two that they went in. They're like, oh, no, he didn't do it. And they're like, oh, shit, yes, he did. Because some of these first ones, back then, the graves were only like a couple feet in the ground. It wasn't the 6 feet that we kind of do now. And there was a kind of tombs that were done. Sometimes they'd be made out of concrete, but somewhere like this, they're going to more than likely be made out of wood. So, just go right through those, and he would have easy to dig up 2 feet, crack right through there, get what he needs. So they were able to confirm very quickly, like, okay, everything he is telling us is 100% true. He would maintain for his entire life that Bernice's death was an accident, that he did not mean to do it. I don't know if I believe that. It kind of seems intentional. But to a schizophrenic, very well, he could be like, it could be an accident to him.
Yeah.
And he did not believe that he was the one that killed Mary. But they told him, they're like, well, we found her head in your house. And he's like, oh, I suppose I did do it then. If you found her head in my house, then I suppose it did. I mean, that was kind of he was legally insane. And that was very quickly, the medical staff, he went to Central State Hospital because they were like, he is legally insane, schizophrenic, he is very much not fit to stand trial at all. But
that means maybe he did eat people. Because he was not really able to tell you the truth, even though he thought it was.
He could have, but it was just more of the stuff that he took was bones and skin. It was not so much meat. He had a couple organs here and there, but that he admitted to so much stuff that they were just kind of inclined to believe him. Because like you say, at that point, what's he got to lie about, So I'm still of the opinion he did not eat people. But once he was institutionalized, he found a whole lot more enjoyment in his life. He was able to get the help that he needed his entire life. So he was able to find a whole lot of peace in his later life, and he died there in 1984 at the age of 78.
78.
So I think it was like 25 years or something. That I didn't write down the math, but yeah, he was there for a long time. And there's a really cool book. I cannot remember the author, but it's called Deviant, and it's that's where a lot of this is from. And it is a fascinating story. It's such a good book. There's a lot of books and stuff written about him. That's my personal favorite. Is Deviant. It's kind of more like this. It obviously, I'm not trying to defend his actions or anything about him at all, but it makes a clearer picture that he was not just some cold-blooded killer. He was a very, very, very sick man. Where, the other kind of classics of Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy, those were sick men, but they were also demented. They knew what they were doing, and they were proud of what they were doing. They got off on what they were doing. Where Ed may have a little bit, but he was just so much more mentally unable than they were. That he just kind of had a different... He knew what he was doing. Like I said, he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he didn't kind of understand the difference between right and wrong. But I'm about to change your mind, though, because you want to hear all the stuff he made. Let's go through this list.
What was he doing with the stuff he made first?
It was just kind of
He kept it
decorations
for just...
around his house. He had a couple shrunken heads that he would bring out and like show people that would come over to his house kind of before all of this started. And he said he got them, I think it was from like a cousin that brought them back. And nobody kind of really knows where he got those, but he did have shrunken heads that he would bring out and show people.
How do you do, shrunken heads? What do you do with that? How do you make them shrunken?
I don't know. That I do remember
I'm just curious.
that my aunt had one. And it was
like,
what?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was real or not, but it was kind of one of those things that, like, I think in the 80s and 90s, like, it was not quite as horrible. It was not looked at as quite as horrible as it would be now, but I think there's real ones floating around. I'm pretty sure
What's
hers
the
was fake.
purpose, though?
It's just like a decor item.
Oh.
It's a lot of times it's like military men will bring them back when they are stationed in areas that participate in that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am so sheltered from all of that. I've never seen a shrunken head, ever.
It's about to get worse.
Okay, let's hear it.
Whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin. He had human skin that he had reupholstered a couple chairs with. He had, your bedposts, he had 2 skulls on either side of his bed, which... While I wouldn't take them from another person, I think that's metal as shit. I would do that with some fake skulls on my bed. He had an assortment of female skulls. So when some had the tops sewn off, this is all from Wikipedia. So if you want to ever go look at that list, there's kind of sources and pictures of some of them. He had a corset made from female torso skin from the shoulders to waist. I think that may have been the one that included the mammaries. He had leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from the skin of female heads. Mary Hogan's face was in a paper bag. Her skull was in a box. Bernice Warden's entire head was in a burlap sack, and her heart was the one that was in the plastic bag near the stove. He had 9 vulva in a shoebox.
Shut up!
Wait, so
What?
how many people was he convicted of? Only 2, right?
Yeah, it's just 2 that he killed, because the rest of
How did
them...
he have 9?
Well, it's like the 9... He only harvested women, so that's kind of one of the main parts that he took. And it's 9 confirmed graves. There could be way more. And
But he was only convicted of 2.
Yeah, it was just the 2 actual murders, because I'm sure they could have and did probably. I don't know how much of a conviction there was since he was legal.
That's true.
He had 9
Yeah.
vulvas.
Yeah, and
That's conviction material.
oh, for sure
For 9. Because
2
we're not walking out without it.
No.
No.
Two of the vulvas belonged to females that were judged to be about 15 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it worse. There's the belt of human nipples. That's my personal favorite from the list. Oh, actually, my second favorite's down here, too. 4 noses. So he just had 4 individual noses. So he had a pair of lips that were on, like human lips, not vulva ellipse, that were on like the drawstrings of the curtains. So when you would pull them, they would kiss. Yeah, he was very creative. He had a lampshade made from the skin of a human face. The picture of that one is nuts. That in the fingernails from human fingers. I'm surprised I didn't even notice it whenever I put this list together. The gloves aren't there. He 100% had gloves made from human skin too. But yeah, the lamp is an interesting picture. The belt and the memory vest are both. They're exactly what you think they look like. You know what I mean? Like that belt looks exactly how you would expect it to. So
I gotta go over and look all this up.
yeah, if you're
I'm
into
gonna
that,
pass.
yeah, if you can,
I'll believe
if
you.
you're into it,
Yeah,
then
that's
it's
true.
worth it. It's
No, I
worth a
want to
look.
see the. I want to see the. I
I
don't
just
want to see the
lamp.
vulvas. I
The
don't want to see the
lamp's
vulvas,
crazy.
but
I just want to see the lamp.
the draw, the kissing lips.
Yeah. That was one I found kind of when I was researching this again. That was one I had completely forgot about. The lamp, because I don't know if y'all remember like Snopes or Rotten.com from back in the day. That may have been, I say Phoebe might. I don't know kind of if I was late or early in that generation of that. But yeah, that's where I saw a lot of this stuff at like 13, 14.
Wow.
Rotten.com was horrible. My cousin used to torment me with that stuff. We were both not into that kind of thing, because that's a gross thing to say, but interested in it. We'll call it that.
It's
But yeah,
really
that's-
difficult not to look. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
when you drive past an accident, you want to make sure everybody's okay, but you also cannot help but see what happened.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
For
human
sure.
curiosity.
There was a wreck not that long ago. Brian and I were driving out to go disc golf with some buddies, and we all got stuck in the same traffic. And there had been a motorcycle accident, and so obviously there's like a tarp on the road, and we're like, oh shit. But there's just like I swear to God, they just went. It's like barely covering him. Like you couldn't see his face, but like this whole part of his body's just like hanging out, and we're like, guys, like. My God, like when we got there, there was a couple of the guys that were like, I need a second, and like had to kind of get some air, because they were just not fucking prepared for that.
No.
Some people can't.
I had the same thing happen to me. It actually like scarred me because I can still picture it in my mind. I was heading to, it was a rainy night, and I was headed to Sigaville to see my family at the ranch. And as I'm passing by, there is like all of these cars in an accident in front of me. Like, I don't know if the fog, the rain, whatever, it caused a train-like effect, but all over the place. There were sneakers, there was shirts, there was a mother screaming and running with the shoe. I mean, and then there was a child covered, and it was so absolutely disturbing and devastating and gut-wrenching. I've never seen anything like it. So I can't.
To see something like that online and is one thing, but when you eventually see that in person, because I don't think anybody's ever gonna get out of it without seeing a little bit of fucked up shit. It's just so completely different. It's a completely different experience. It's I make light of my interest in this kind of stuff, but I think that's kind of where that comes from, is just from the respect of it, and it's just like, we ain't here for a long time, so have a good time. You know what I mean? You never know.
Yeah. and honestly, it feels a little bit like we're so far removed from that story just because of how old the story is.
For sure.
It's not like it's current and it's happening in the news right now, and there's families and victims talking about it. So it's a little bit easier to digest it, I think. But still, nonetheless, the fact that somebody thought to look at a woman and make something out of her. I mean, there's beauty. Women are beautiful, and I can see parts of that element, but wow.
It comes from a very disturbed individual with a very fucked up childhood and being raised. Sorry, I'm like melting. It's so freaking hot in that stupid cape.
You're good.
I'm a pirate now. But yeah, that's why that story in particular is more interesting to me than so many more of them, just because you can just see if he had just maybe been raised a little bit different, had the help that he needed, and kind of not been inadvertently fostered by his mother into hating women and being raised that, oh, should he be a woman, should he be a man, all the confusing feelings that come with that. There's just so much stuff that at that time period, it was just like, shut up, grow up, just be a man. And it creates this. It creates nipple belts and vulvas in a shoebox.
Man, it's absolutely crazy. So send people, if people want to go and research this story or see pictures, can you tell us where to go?
100%. I will look up the author.
Okay.
I tried to remember it earlier. It is Harold Schechter, Deviant. It is the story of Ed Gein, and it goes through pretty much the entire timeline that I've gone through here. If you don't mind some grotesque jokes, language, that kind of thing, I highly recommend Last Podcast on the Left. This is an old episode of this. It's like, I think 171 through 173. It's a 3-parter. Same kind of thing. They got a lot of their stuff from Deviant, and it's just this kind of same principle. I highly recommend that podcast for anything true crime because those boys are hilarious. My crush of my life, Henry Sabrowski, is on there. He's a good boy. I love that man.
So what's the name of it? I'll type it in.
Last Podcast on the Left. It's like an OG podcast. It is older than sin. But yeah, they are very, very good boys. I usually am on Spotify. I think they have like their own website. I've always gotten it through a platform of some sort.
Okay, Last Podcast on the Left for true crime.
It's now it's I think Ed, Marcus, and Henry. It used to be Ben, Marcus, and Henry.
Okay.
But it's still just as good. They are some good boys. They do their research. They are hilarious, but they are raunchy. But that's why I dig it.
Okay, so then let's go to something that's a little different than what we just heard. What do you got, Phoebe? I'm going to probably save the Menendez to a different episode just because it is so, you know what I mean? I think we're off. We're not going to be here 3 hours. We all know that. So let's let Phoebe hit her story because I'm very interested to hear this.
Yeah, who
You
you
ready
got,
to-
Phoebe?
Interested to hear mine?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Luckily, I didn't have to do a lot of research on it because I knew some of the people involved in this. So we'll get to that. Yeah. So my story is about, it starts off about a lady named Diana Kelly. She lived in Joplin, Missouri back in the 90s. This started September 26, 1990 in Joplin. A paint store employee noticed a car parked outside of their building that they'd never seen before. So they went to check out the car and they found a woman dead in the car. And that was Diane Kelly. She was a 24-year-old mother to a 4-year-old. There was no signs of trauma. It was just she had a little bit of blood around her nose and one of her hands. And that was it. And so, the police didn't have much to work with. They quickly found out that the night before she had went out with a friend, and afterwards she had planned to meet up with her estranged husband, whose name was Doyle. They were going through a separation, but he said, he told the police everything was fine and that she didn't meet him that night. He never saw her. Her mother confirmed the same. You want to go? Go. So wait, why my son had
story?
I know, I'm sorry, my son had been in
can't-
here, and
No, I don't
soon
care
as
about that. Just go ahead.
as soon as I started telling the murder story, he's like, I'm out of here.
Was he in
You
there
want to go?
talking about nipple belts?
No, because I have on headphones, so he couldn't hear you,
Oh,
but he can hear me now.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why.
oh my god.
Yeah.
No kids should
Okay,
tune into this
so-
live.
My bad. So
worries.
Doyle and Diana, they had been married for 5 years, and like I said, they were separated, but everything seemed amicable at the time. He said that she didn't show up. Her mother also said she didn't show up to pick up her 4-year-old son, and so the police just didn't have much to go off of. They thought maybe it was suicide, maybe it was murder. Autopsy came back, and it didn't help at all. It actually made things more confusing because The autopsy came back showing there was signs of hemorrhaging in her face and her back, and she seemingly died from respiratory failure. So that still doesn't tell them a lot. So it made it pretty tricky for them. Like, was it a natural death or was it murder? They still, suicide or murder, they still really didn't have a good cause. So the official cause ended up being marked undetermined by the morgue. So they started just looking for suspects to see if there's someone out there that might have wanted to harm Diana. Because she was a very nice person. You know, everyone described her as very giving and just super sweet lady. And nobody could understand who would want to do this to her.
Diana Kelly?
Diana Kelly. She passed away September 26, 1990. So they started poking around and they found out she had been dating a guy named Richard Blackwood at the time. And the people that knew them described Richard as obsessed with her. He said that, or they said that he was just a strange person and he seemed obsessed with her. The police said the same when they interviewed him. They said, strange person who acted strange. And so they were really thinking he could have did it, but they didn't have any type of evidence and he never admitted anything. But at one point in his interviews, he insisted that he was going to die by suicide because he wanted to go be with Diana. So they didn't necessarily think it was him. They, of course, you know, talked to her estranged husband, Doyle, and he had the same, you know, they didn't meet up. Everything was amicable. They were getting along just fine, you know, co-parenting and all that, and just going through a separation. So the case ended up going cold ultimately because they didn't have enough to go off of or figure anything out. So fast forward 3 years later, and I'll just say this is when I had met Doyle. I was a child at the time, but my mother was friends with him. She knew him through the program. I'll say it. She was in AA and NA. Doyle was too. And so she knew him. They were actually good friends. And like, I remember going to his house in Joplin, Missouri, which is where, you know, and I didn't know because he was already, you know, we just knew my mom knew he had, his ex-wife had died, but, you know, tragically, and it was just sad, you know, you just see him as like, oh, this poor widow guy who's, you know, in recovery, trying to get his life together. And he did tattoos. I remember he touched up, my mom had a tattoo she got back in like 80 when I was first born, and he touched it up. So I remember going to his house and he did my sister's very first tattoo, Doyle did. So it's like, we knew this man really well.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah,
is
so
Crazy.
Doyle eventually started dating another lady in the program who happened to be one of my mom's very best friends. It was a lady named Christy Kelly. And ironically, Christy and Diana look almost identical if you see pictures of them side by side. So he obviously had a type. So now he's dated Christy, and then they eventually got married. So he's now moved on, you know, he's married. Christy's a super sweet person. Like I said, one of my mom's best friends. And then all of a sudden one day my mom gets a call. Christy's dead. She turns up dead in her bathtub.
Why she gotta have my name?
She just did. That was her name, Christy. So yeah, basically 3 years later in April 93, a woman called police because her sister hadn't come to pick up her daughter and she was concerned. So police stopped by her home for a welfare check and they found the woman dead, lying face down in her bathtub. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the back of the head and was then held down in the water until she drowned. So they could
He gave himself
tell.
away.
So it was, Christy.
Yeah.
And so who was having to be her husband? Doyle Kelly. So now the cops are like, this is too much of a coincidence. Yeah, so you kind of screwed yourself there, buddy.
Bit of a black widow.
Yeah, a little bit. And so the relation, you know, their marriage started out happy, but it quickly soured because Doyle was kind of a possessive person, I could say that. And, you know, being an addict or recovering addict, he, you know, had some faults about him. But they were actually in the process of splitting up too, Christy and Doyle, when this actually happened. And she had even moved on at this point with her landlord. So he was pissed off, you know.
Keeping it real close.
The landlord. So first they're like, well, let's make sure the landlord didn't do it. But the landlord had an alibi. He was out of town. And so Doyle tried to say he had an alibi as well. But his neighbors kind of, you know, threw a wrench in that game and said, like, no, he was lying when he said he was at his house. He wasn't at his house. So they decided to actually, they couldn't get much further with Christy. They didn't have any evidence really tying him there. So they decided to circle back to Diana's original death, and they went back and started interviewing her friends from back then. Um, and so they did get an interesting revelation when a friend of Diana's said that before she died, that they were at Doyle's house. No, wait. An interesting revelation emerged. A friend said that the day after Diana died, she was at Doyle's house and he was smashing up a St. Christopher's medal, the one Diana had been wearing the night before her death that was never found. And so now this person suddenly says, like, the St. Christopher that was missing off her body, we saw Doyle destroying it. So he obviously had it after the fact. So they decided they wanted to exhume Diana's body at this point to see if they had missed some evidence. And so they had to get it approved by like her family and everything. And they actually were, and he tried to block it. Doyle tried to block them exhuming Diana's body. But they did eventually get a judge to pass off on it, and her family approved. And in 1993, August of 93, they exhumed Diana's body, pulled her up from the grave.
That's an awesome one. I remember
really?
that year. Mhm.
So it says, luckily, her body was still well preserved, and a new medical examiner looked over her and noted indentations and bruising around her neck, as well as damage to a throat bone, indicating she was strangled.
I
So
thought
now
so.
her cause of death has changed to a homicide, and Doyle was arrested for both murders.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And the reason was because they left him?
yeah, and he was jealous. Like
Abandonment
Christy,
issues.
it says Christy had said he could be really controlling, and she was scared of him at times. He was just a really controlling, and the type that seemed nice, but then when they get angry, you see that other side of them. And Doyle had that. So Doyle did get found guilty of first-degree murder of Diana and Christy in October 94. So this all moved pretty quickly too. And he was given 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. So thanks to them being able to exhume her body, they were able to find out he had killed not just his current wife, but his ex-wife. And I think it's really crazy because in the end, he had, of course, he filed appeals and everything trying to get, some time off. And in the end, they did have to scrap Christie's case. They did end up having to overturn that conviction due to some type of paperwork that didn't get filed, some weird loophole in the justice system.
God. There should
But
be
since
some kind of thing about that stuff. I hate it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but since they had got Diana, since they exhumed her, and they could prove that one at this point with all the new evidence, so he still stayed in prison. He never got out. And it actually said that when he got arrested, I didn't know this, but he was actually already dating another lady. He was engaged to a new lady already when he still wasn't even divorced from Christy yet. And he was seeing a 21-year-old at the time who was much younger than him and all of that.
I wish I could see what this guy looked like.
I was about to say, is he good looking or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
Quickly.
I do remember he was a handsome guy. He kind of had the biker look. He had, like I said, he did
that's
tattoos. He
hot.
kind of had longer hair and like the mustache. And yeah, he wasn't not hot. Like, I mean, I was a child, but I do remember he was kind of cute. And yeah, so that is what happened. And we ended up actually with Christy's dog because, someone had to take her
Aw.
dog in.
Oh my God.
So Christy's dog ended up living with us. Yeah. And let's see. And so what I did want to mention about this also is, you asked like, where could you find this information? They actually did an episode about this on the Oxygen Network. They had a series called Exhumed, and it's about cases where they end up digging up the bodies. And so it was crazy to see this on an episode that's, yeah. And so you can go to oxygen.com right now if you wanted to and see the whole episode, and you can see pictures and hear the longer version of it. It's Exhumed on Oxygen, and this was actually the season 1's episode 1. So this was their premiere episode, was about these people in Joplin, Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
that is crazy that you're so closely connected to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I completely forgot until we were talking about this now. I should have done Charles Albright instead of Ed Gein because I went to the high school that his wife taught at. I don't know if y'all know Charles Albright. He was a killer from shit. I can't remember if it's is 80s, 70s, 80s, but he was the eyeball killer. He was the trucker that would pick up prostitutes and then take their eyes. And that's like that was his whole thing is he was the eyeball killer. And
The eyeball killer.
His wife taught me well, obviously his ex-wife, the one that put him away. She taught me in high school.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, and if we ever do another one of these, I'll do him. I completely spaced on that.
I don't have any connections to any killers, but I was connected to Brittany Murphy, who was you know who Brittany Murphy is?
Yeah.
She was in Clueless and Eminem.
Everything.
My Lust. I love Eminem, and she was in that movie. I was so jealous. But anyway, I went to dancing school with her, and
No way.
yeah,
Oh, that's crazy.
in Avenel, New Jersey, and her mom. I remember her mom would bring her in, and she was right. She had just tried out for Star Search around that time. She didn't get it, but yeah. And then we had this. We were doing I forget what it's like a musical theater type thing, and her mom was a part of it with her, and they were really, really close. So all these rumors that say that her mom was involved in her death, I can promise you that is not the case because they were extremely close.
I had wondered about that because we were talking about this recently because she played Luann in King of the Hill, which I adore, and we had talked about that not long ago about her death, and it was just because they're doing a reboot of it, and it's like the one reboot I'm actually like hopeful for. And it's like a 25 years later or something. And I was like, oh, she's not going to be able to be on it. So I don't know if they're going to get another voice actor. But she was like one of my favorite characters on that. I loved her.
Yeah, and you know, she was a sweet kid. You know, she's younger than I was, but it's really cool because I watched her grow and what she did and before she was famous, and then to see that happen to a hometown girl, you know, that it was like one of ours, and it's really, really sad. But they're still talking about it. Like it's still something that is a mystery to everyone because she died of pneumonia, and then her husband 6 months later, who I'm told and have learned is not the greatest guy, died 6 months after that with the same thing. Yeah. So, you know, Brittany Murphy's dad has come out and said that there's something to this. That
I was going to say, I wonder if she attended any Diddy parties.
I was just going to say, there are pictures, Phoebe. There is a connection that people are saying right now.
Gosh, get out of here.
Now, I know there's conspiracy theories, but you and I will cover this.
Yes.
When we talk about Diddy, and that's why I'm watching. I'm like, there is no freaking way, because Kim Porter died of pneumonia. Just saying. So there could be something to that. I don't know. We're not going to get into that today, but yeah.
For y'all to do that though, because
right. I'm like, that's a new one.
Yeah. So I can't wait because of it's like literally we have to draw a diagram of how these all connect to freaking Diddy in the middle. It's nuts.
Well, I wonder if we should research is there something you can give someone that would basically make it look like they died of pneumonia? I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that's random. Like, I wonder what that drug is where it kills them, but it looks like it's pneumonia and not like some poison because I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you saying that story that made me think of the little girl from Poltergeist. You know, she died of pneumonia, and it's like, who dies of pneumonia? Like, I remember thinking that.
You know, when you're
but you know, there's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy behind that now, where it's like she didn't really die of pneumonia, is what they're saying now, and so that's why I'm like, I wonder if there's a thing that you can make it look like that.
Yeah,
because there's a conspiracy theory that she didn't die of pneumonia. I'll say that.
And go ahead, Sam. I think you're having a thought. Mm-hmm. No, okay. Well, I know that. Yeah, no, I know that there is a way, and I'm learning that a little bit as I'm listening to that podcast I sent you the other day. It's unbelievable the stuff that you hear, and he had the means and the method to be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
And cover it up. And people working for him and all know this right now. So it's going to be interesting because I just saw that the lawyer came out today and said he's about to name people in the lawsuits, and he's got over 100 lawsuits or 1,000 lawsuits to drop as, I guess, they're not paying them off. So if they don't pay them off, their names are going to be revealed.
Come
And
on,
it's
let's
all
give it
starting
to
drop.
us.
He's ready to
Yeah.
drop the names.
We need to start a GoFundMe to pay him to drop all the names. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we should probably do. So much
I mean,
to talk
hell,
about.
They
Yeah.
dropped the Epstein Island book, and everybody just kept bebopping along. So
I know, and they were all complaining about it. So I
It's
don't
like,
know.
Sorry, you
Yeah.
got busted on child. Not gonna say on YouTube Island.
right.
You know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I agree. I would like to say, I know Halloween's coming up and, everybody's going to go out and do their thing and we hope everybody stays safe and check your candy. What are you giving out candy this year, Phoebe?
I think so. My son is 10 now, and he's 10, and this is last year we started a new tradition where we go to a friend's house that has a big Halloween party every year. They live in a neighborhood that's big, huge on trick or treating, and what Mike is their husband. He loads them all up on a trailer, and he pulls a ton of kids on the trailer, and my husband will go. And so I'm thinking, like, he's at the age where he wants to be with his friends, and all I'm doing is like running behind him, trying to catch up, and like,
Mhm.
to where I'm like, I might stay at home and pass out candy and let
There
the
you
guys
go.
go out and trick or treat.
My
Yeah,
dog
so
goes crazy with the doorbell and the kids. So it's
Yeah.
it's not the
Oh,
most
yeah.
fun for me, but Trevor has a football game on Thursday. So we're going to be there.
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
going to be dressed up like this, hanging
Yeah.
out at the football game. It's a
That'll
home
be
game, so
fun.
yeah, I
I
think so
will.
too. It's a
Yeah.
change up,
Mhm.
What are you doing, Sam?
Oh, I just texted you 2 pictures. Last weekend was my niece's Halloween party, and she had like 50 freaking teenagers over at their house. But I sent you a picture of the dips that me and my mom put together for her. And that Scream one I carved out of cream cheese. I was very proud of that.
Wow.
I want to see. I love Scream. I love Scream.
There you go.
How cool.
That is awesome. You did a good job.
And
Yeah.
then
And saying that I made this spider dip. Me and my mom.
Oh,
were so
that looks
proud of
great.
those. Yeah,
isn't
and
that
man,
good?
go figure, 50 teenagers, and that obviously that was not the only food. But they sent me like aftermath pictures, and it looked like a freaking tornado had.
I know they tore it up.
Oh
Yep.
my god! And I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
kidding. There was like 50 of them. Like she is the socialist of butterflies. But no, tomorrow what we will do, same thing. We got the 3 dogs. We
Mhm.
will shut everybody in here, play real loud movies, and like generally our light in the front is like on constantly. But that's the one day that we like turn everything off, and because our neighborhood is like super like there's children everywhere. And so we're like, no, and our neighbors know. They're aware of us by now. So we're just like, nope, not participating.
Yeah.
And it's really more for the dogs. It would just drive them freaking crazy. And I don't,
Aw.
I have my own bowl of candy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did all of our celebrating last weekend, and me and him will watch horror movies and just kind of hang out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say that I'm going to put this episode on Simply Vibin' podcast. It'll be streaming on Apple and Spotify, and you can find the video version on the Simply Vibin' page. And also, this right here is going to go out without edits. So typically, it's more polished. Simply Vibin'. I'm putting it on the screen right now, so you can go check out the YouTube page.
I think we stayed on
and-
track pretty good, though.
I think so too. I think so
Mhm.
too. And also, we will be here. I like this going live thing, Phoebe. I really, really do.
Okay.
I think it's going to be an easy way to edit for me. I'm just going to throw it out unpolished with a beginning and an end. And that
I'm
way
fine with
I don't
that.
have to do much work on it. Yeah, and it's just, shooting the shit, really. Just talking and kind of doing our thing. Sam, I want to have you back. And I know it's so hard to get you. She's like highly in demand because I can't get her here all the time.
Well, and I have to say, I'm so happy to see you too, to see your face and see you
Yeah.
here and not just hear your voice.
I don't know. I want to be there tomorrow so bad, but like I am medicated to the nines because I feel like such shit this week. So I'm
Aw.
like, no, I need to like focus for tonight
Yeah.
and then pass out afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will not be there tomorrow. But I'll be there on Monday. So I will hopefully I will.
You'll be with us in
that's on
spirit.
Monday. Yeah, I will because that's a good time, and Brian will be there, so it should be fun. But yeah, it's I miss you guys.
Yeah, we miss you. But I want to say, anybody listening or watching, if you would like to get, start a petition and get Sam here more often, we would love to have her.
Hey, y'all do more coverage like this. I got Killers on Killers. I want to do Albert
No,
Fish,
I told
'cause that's
you.
a nightmare in itself.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I mean, I may just also have you on Simply Vibin', or not Simply Vibin', Love You, Miss You, Bye, my other podcast, because it's a true crime as well.
Yeah.
So let's just rock on both for sure. And
No.
Phoebe,
The drunk clown?
the drunk clown. You really do. Yeah, that's it. You nailed it with that. You nailed it with that. Yeah. So if you guys want to go follow us, go check us out. Phoebe, do you have any parting words today?
No, but thank you. And I hope you join us on this new journey.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And Phoebe and I have been doing this a little while now, so hopefully you'll like our new topics, and we're getting a little bit away from the cannabis and start to talk about other things, other valuable
I mean, we're not
things.
getting totally away from it. We're just getting away from it topic wise. That's all.
Just topic-wise.
Just for
topic-wise.
clarification.
Oh my God. I forgot to mention, I don't know that we'll be talking to him before the next podcast, before the next episode. Go out and vote. Go out and vote.
Go
It's happening
and vote
Tuesday.
now, too. It's
Yes.
early voting is so much easier than waiting till the day of.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I went yesterday morning and I was in and out in like 5 minutes, literally.
For real? When
Yes,
does it
in and
end?
out.
Today?
I would
Today?
no. I mean, you might want to look. Like I'm like, I don't know. Look,
Yeah.
you don't want to
to
wait until Tuesday.
I
You
always
don't want to wait
do.
until then.
I always do, but I might not this time. We'll see. All right.
That's a
Well,
beating.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for simply vibing with us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. All right. It is 3. Hold on. Trying to stop it. Don't know if I can. Hold on. I did it. We're off.
Nice.
That was so good.
That was real good.
And it was fun.